He's the director of Zero Carbon Britain.
We'd got about 50 people there, from climate activists from across Wales, a lot of whom didn't know each other. We wanted them to feel relaxed and be able to contribute their best thinking into the discussion. So we started off with introductions, where we gave people a chance to find out who was there and speak to each other. We wanted to use some of the things that you do in a citizens' assembly, so we wanted to have some expert input.
The key thing is to multi-solve. If we have to do the right thing for carbon, we can do it in a way that improves health, improves air quality, improves employment, improves supply chains. And by linking up those multi-solving benefits, we get to really change how we do things and begin to build in a larger constituency, because the deaths that we have in Cardiff from air quality are every bit as sad as the deaths we have from flooding and climate impacts.
After that, we came to the question that we were asking people, and what we'd boiled it down to was something about what we wanted the Assembly members to take away in terms of how they were going to engage with citizens, so citizens would have a sense of how the climate emergency action was progressing.
After we brought the small groups back together into a large group, we asked them then to have 1 minute to present 3 key ideas. So that way we had then created a list on flip chart paper of everybody's ideas. The initial 8 ideas that we came up with was 1, producing a climate emergency plan to review targets and focus on climate justice and equality. A citizens' assembly was the second. The third was education, raise environmental awareness. The fourth was to stop supporting fossil fuels. The fifth was movements working together, cultural, social and environmental. The sixth was run pre-citizens' assemblies, basically run people's assembly in the lead up to establishing a citizens' assembly at the Senedd. Meaningful consultation and active travel. Cycling and walking, basically. We then gave Paul Allen a chance to respond to those ideas.
If you're looking at the values people hold, 74% of the population hold intrinsic values of social worth and environmental worth. They hold the right values, but 77% believe their neighbours don't hold those values. And that is one of the most important barriers to overcome. If we realise that other people care just as we care, we find that we're part of one mass coalition.
So we're going to be getting into groups, small groups for discussion.
Then everybody went back into the same small groups again to then decide which 2 they would vote for.
A nice succinct list of demands that we were going to give to the Assembly members.
We needed to achieve an open and democratic way in which we were honing our ideas.
Is that the full power station?
Mark Drakeford advised us the most effective way to get Assembly members to come down and participate in our event was for members of XR, who are also their constituents, to send personal invites to them.
Extinction Rebellion has been incredibly important at ensuring that everybody realises that we've only got 12 years and we better get on with it.
The Extinction Rebellion method is to use non-violent direct action to make it impossible for politicians to ignore the issue of climate change. And I think that's being very effective. You know, it's certainly gone up greatly in people's assessment of what the important issues are. There have been declarations of climate emergency from, you know, across the UK, from various councils, from the Welsh Government. So I think that that's being successful. The demand to do something to cut climate emissions as quickly as possible is actually a very profound demand, you know, asks profound social change. And so that's going to need continual pressure to do that.
Okay, first of all we're going to talk about what went well. So then we're going to talk about what could be done differently, so save those points until a bit later.
What we wanted to do was think about, having got to this, what our next steps are, and also who's going to do them. So I think if we go into groups of 3 or 4 and talk about it, and then I think we need to feed back what we're going to do with the information we've got from this. I'm profoundly into democracy if it means that we all have a say in the decisions that affect us. But I think it needs rethinking, because it doesn't, for most people, it doesn't feel like they have a say.
The representation of people needs to be much better. That is obviously a conversation that needs to be had.
One of the ideas we came up with is going back into communities and finding an issue that affects that community. Campaign on that, engage with those communities on those issues, while at the same time linking them to the bigger issues. So you're not going into communities where people are struggling on a daily basis, saying, you've got to do this to save the world.
The other thing I think we have to do is get Welsh Government to say that they are going to run a citizens' assembly. It may be that we need lots and lots of people's assemblies first to get people ready for that.
The current society, where what's seen as important is GDP and profit, it doesn't make sense for people and planet. It's not what's good for people and planet, it's what's good for some people.
What the Citizens' Assembly does is allow politicians to test the water, to see whether some radical ideas would actually be acceptable to the public or not.
If a citizens' assembly is used as part of that process, it will support politicians to make the radical decisions that are necessary to save us.
Yes.